I just wanted some sauce on those zingers.
All right, everybody, welcome to the show. Hope you're having an awesome day. A couple shameless plugs first before we get into the video. First and foremost, make sure you subscribe to Review Tech USA. I upload content on a daily basis and stream usually on a fairly regular basis. Also, make sure you leave a like and a comment. It helps out in the algorithm. And secondly, I have an ASMR channel called Tech25 ASMR. I'll be having plenty of new content up there this year. I already have plenty of content there now, so make sure you go sub to Tech25 ASMR as well. I'll have links to everything I mentioned below in the description and top pinned comment. So I know this seems like something whenever I talk about RAM and console prices increasing and the AI bubble, that it's like, oh God, here he goes talking about how much RAM has increased in price since like late summer and fall. Well, it's getting crazier, so this will really make it sink in. This is the most dramatic example that I've shown yet. So in August 2025, you could get a 64 gigabyte kit. I'm looking at it right now. Team Delta, for example, you get a 64 gigabyte kit for about $190. And that was faster DDR5 at 6400 megahertz. And hell, there's a Crucial kit here made by Micron. Rest in peace, Crucial, because they're just an enterprise company now. It was the consumers like us that made Crucial what it is, and now they just gave us the finger and like, yeah, we're going where the real money is. Other kits like Crucial, 64 gig was going for in August 2025 only $135. You want to know how much these 64 gigabyte kits are now? Let's take a look at Newegg. This is a place that a lot of people get RAM from. Corsair, 64 gigabyte kit, over $1,100. You could go for something cheaper and a more bargain kit of 64 gigabytes of RAM for $750. $1,100 for Corsair 64 gigabyte kit. There's another one here, 827. Oh, that's a bargain. And look at these 128 gigabyte kits real quick. $1,500 about. You're getting in striking distance of an MSRP, even those are going up in price too now, of a RTX 5090 for RAM. Remember, just in late August, 64 gigabyte kit you could get for 130 something bucks. It's insane. Well, in a rare moment, Nintendo discussed the future of pricing with the Switch 2. Is it going to be affected? It is. Is it going to be affected by the RAM crisis and the AI crunch that's going on? And Nintendo sounded a little more confident in August. Now they don't sound confident. Not at all. This comes from Kotaku.com. I'll read it to you, then we'll discuss. Nintendo says it's actively monitoring the impacts of tariffs and the rising prices of RAM as an AI-fueled scramble spikes computing costs around the world. The comments come in a rare interview the Mario Maker's president, Shuntaro Furukawa, gave to the Kyoto Shimbun, which is a Japanese paper and news website, which was translated by Video Games Chronicle. In it, the executive noted that the possibility of raising the price of the Nintendo Switch 2 due to future costs is hypothetical and didn't commit one way or the other. However, he did acknowledge that AI data centers requiring large amounts of RAM and the scarcity the situation creates may become a concern in the future. And he goes on here to talk about how hardware profitability depends on the pricing of the components that they get, and the more expensive the components are, the more it eats into the profitability. I don't think you need to be a financial scholar to know that, but nonetheless, it's what he talks about here. He also talks about exchange rates and tariffs, how those could affect pricing. Oh man, it feels like just 35 years ago, even though it was barely a year ago, that we were talking about tariffs. It's like with the Trump administration in the States, it's like you could even talk about things that happened 2 weeks ago and it feels like 8 months ago because there's so much going on. Needless to say, not a political video. Now, Furukawa in November did sound a little more confident about the Switch 2's price and how it'll maintain the price, at least for the foreseeable future. This is what he had to say. While we are aware that the costs of various materials are rising, we also anticipate some areas where cost reduction may be achieved for Nintendo Switch 2 through ongoing mass production efforts. So he sounded more confident, like they could weather the storm back in November, but with the way everything is in the world, November, like I said, it's like 60 years ago. So things have changed and they don't really sound as confident now. During the interview, the Nintendo president also said that the game company had projected a negative impact from tariffs last year, which ended up costing it tens of millions in the first half. This is a crucial period for our game business as we promote the adoption of new hardware and maintain the momentum of our platforms. We are working on this while carefully considering the situation. Now, if you remember back in August, Nintendo pulled a weird maneuver. I know why they did it, where they increased the price of the previous generation Switches because they didn't want to have the bad PR on their newly released Switch 2. The original Switch, the vanilla one, non-OLED, went from $299 to $339. The Switch OLED went from $349 to $399, which is insane that the Switch OLED in 2026, and it's a previous gen console from Nintendo, is in striking distance of the Switch 2. Do not buy the previous generation Switch. It literally, with the price increases, makes 0 sense. And the Switch Lite went from $199 to $230. So there were price increases there, and I think that was a smart move for Nintendo to make the older, less desirable hardware take the financial hit for them. I know the original Switch is still selling, and they rather make up what they're eating in price due to tariffs and components with the older hardware instead of making the new hardware more expensive and less appealing. And President Furukawa also went on to say this: while it's difficult to accurately gauge the future impact, our basic policy is to recognize tariffs as a cost and pass them on to prices as much as possible, not just in the US. So does this mean the Nintendo Switch 2 is definitely going to get a price increase? I guess I have to say no, it doesn't mean it, but it does. I could tell by the how vague they were. And then you combine in what Samsung said about, we make the components for all this hardware. The prices are going to increase because the prices of our components are increasing. Yeah, the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to see a price increase. Hopefully for now, Nintendo has a bunch of RAM and other components stockpiled, but eventually that's going to thin out. Eventually their warehouses are going to empty and they're going to have to buy more components. And what do you think is going to happen? Those components are going to be more expensive. To make the Switch 2 is going to be more expensive. And what's going to happen? What are they going to have to do? Raise the price of the console so they're not eating even more into their profits. And for everyone saying that Nintendo could eat the costs, companies are in business to make money. They're in business to make a profit. They're not just going to eat the cost out of the kindness of their hearts. Now, they may eat the cost if they see their sales, do a nosedive and the Switch 2 sales continue to keep plummeting. I know the Switch 2 has been selling amazing, but this last holiday season, compared to the original Switch, the Switch 2 sales were down 35% compared to its predecessor, which is quite a bit. Again, the trajectory that the Switch 2 is on now, it's definitely outselling the original Switch in the same time period in spades, but it didn't have a great holiday season compared to the Switch one. And that's because, everything is more expensive, let alone electronics getting more expensive due to the components becoming more expensive due to the AI data center RAM crunch. Man, I just said a lot in a very short period of time right there. So unfortunately, I'm not the only one saying this. Issues where your smartphones are going to become more expensive, laptops, game consoles, smart fridges, smart TVs, anything with RAM inside of it, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I do think that all of the consoles are going to see another price increase because the components to make them are getting more expensive. And I do see the PS6 and whatever the next Xbox is being held off because of the RAM prices. But like I said in my video regarding that, is anyone complaining? Is anyone unsatisfied with the PS5 or PS5 Pro? I don't know. I think it might be actually a good thing. I feel like the 9th generation was like it didn't exist. So buckle up, brace your wallets, because I feel this is just the beginning and this RAM crunch and AI RAM crunch crisis isn't going anywhere anytime soon. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.